inclusion and diversity in sports, entertainment, and special events is our wonderful moderator, William P. Miller, who is the owner of WP Miller Special Events and also another co-founder of the Black Table.
Great, well, thank you so much, Mena. Really appreciate that. Before we begin, I just wanted to start off and let everyone know to say we appreciate you joining the call today. We at the Black Table, I'm going to read our mission statement, that we're a collective group of Black event professionals. We're dedicated to elevating the presence and positionings of Blacks in the sports industry through collaboration, keyword collaboration. Our focus is to leverage our economic and cultural impact by pooling our resources to create a pipeline of wealth building and influence within the special events industry. So when you see the Black Table, we want everyone to know that we're more than wedding planners. You know, we do community events, we do concerts, we do conventions, we do sporting events. Collectively, we've worked on all continents except 2. Collectively, we've managed over $100 million in events budget. So there is no event that's too small or something that collectively we cannot handle. And so I wanted to say that so that for people that are on the call today, we want you to know that if you have an opportunity, there should be no insecurities as to why we cannot get it done. We're efficient with executing. We're efficient with carrying out the visions, and we are great at what we do. And we come together as a collective group of event professionals representing event planners. We have rental people on it, and we're looking forward to elevating the presence of Black event professionals nationwide. And so we're going to start. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mena.
Just before we get started, I did want to go over a couple of house rules.
Okay.
So if you guys, while we're having the discussion, please in the chat or the Q&A, you can send your questions. We're going to go through the actual panel discussion first. And as you guys have your questions, just send them there. And then we'll spend about 15-20 minutes before we end the webinar going over your questions. So I will be taking them in the Q&A section if you guys want to submit your questions there.
Great. So I'm going to start the questions off with each of the panelists, and then I think my first question is going to go to Mikki. And so, so Mikki, after as I ask you this question, before you answer, if you want to just tell us a little bit more about yourself, we certainly appreciate it. But my question for you is that how do we as an industry create a healthy, competitive environment and overcome that crabs in a barrel mentality?
Well, the first thing I want to say, William, is to say that I'm very honored to be at this table. I think, you know, this is the table where change and innovation is on the menu. So I'm happy to be here. I have served Black women, if you will, for close to 40 years in my role, various roles at Essence Magazine, from beauty and cover director for 30 years to editor at large now. And one of the things that I have always prided myself on is bringing people together to create, to master their purpose with distinction, you know, under this umbrella called work. Certainly as an author, it's been an honor to tell our narrative in each of my 3 books, including my current book, Editor-in-Chief. And certainly every platform that I've been on, certainly as speaker, you know, as executive producer, as mentor, to really make a difference. I came of age in Brick City, Newark, New Jersey, and with the edict that if the best is possible, then good is not enough. In terms of us and this crabs in the barrel mentality, and it really pains me that that is all too familiar, I think that we have to stop seeing one another as competitors and see one another as champions. Yes. You know, I believe that faith is nothing if it's not defining your life. And so I really believe that what the Creator has for each of us is like reserved seating, that no one else can show up and claim what you've been assigned to do. And I think we waste a lot of time thinking, seeing God through a human lens where there's only room for one of us in this room, or I've got to get there first, or, you know, that thinking we want to do away with that on our watch. I want that term crabs in the barrel to not be familiar to future generations. I want to erase that from the conversation, from the book, chapter, and verse that is us, if you will. But yeah, we have to see one another as champions and not competitors. And I think that has a lot to do with how you see yourself. You know, I know we're going to talk more about that, but self-perception colors your entire life. So if you think small of yourself and you don't understand that you are unprecedented and what you bring to the table, you're always going to be looking over your shoulder, or you're always going to be a chauffeur to negative thoughts that will impede your progress.
Right. Wow, that's a great start. Great start, and we're going to keep going on with that, because I think it's you just dropped some gems there on us. And so I'm going to go over to Todd now. Todd, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then if you can give us some information about what is the difference between selling and being a leader? So, excuse me, selling and being a marketer. Selling and marketing.
Absolutely. So my name is Todd Hawkins, and as William said, one of the co-founders of the Black Table, and I own the Todd Group and managing partner of Hawkins Makita. I work at the intersection of events, social impact, and philanthropy. Have been producing events, particularly in the nonprofit sector, for the last 15 years, and now spending more time helping to consult and guide the event community and event professionals around how they can actually produce events and make impact, and use their events as a tool of making greater impact. And then also working with celebrities and brands on helping them figure out how to create a lasting social impact strategy. And to your question, William, about the difference between selling and marketing, I think that you have to always be equipped and ready to show up and sell and promote yourself. But at the same time, you also have to be able to be prepared to market yourself, and market yourself in a way that not only markets you and your business, but also is marketing you and your community and the people in which you represent. So as Black people, marketing on behalf of the rest of us. If you are specializing in sports, it's you caring more than just yourself when you're selling your product or what your services are. And oftentimes we get so caught in the I instead of the we. And this whole moment right now that we're seeing in terms of the country pivoting and shifting is a moment of collective coming together. And especially it is important for Black professionals to come together. And as you said earlier, to champion one another, instead of looking at each other as competitors, but really start to figure out, how can I sell and market my brand, but at the same time uplift others? For very tactical, example, you are given a contract to produce a major event for a major corporation. Perhaps it's a white corporation. You being that Black event producer, make certain that you're bringing with you Black event vendors, Black rental companies, Black caterers, Black florists, Black photographers, Black videographers. Make your team and those other businesses that are out there looking for those opportunities part of your collective of how you're going to be able to make impact with that event. And we haven't thought like that for a really long time. And this moment, I'm hopeful, will change our thinking and allow us to market and sell on behalf of one another, and knowing that we're selling and marketing excellence always.
Love that, love that. So what I hear you talking about is about our power, which leads me to the next question from Boz, who is just a powerhouse. I mean, it's from the start of working with Spike Lee and just going up to be in the position of Chief Marketing Officer for Endeavor. I mean, I've admired you for so long, but so can you tell us, how can we get more Blacks and executives or in position of powers? One of the things that we often see within the special events industry is that we're not present on the boards of some of the organizations that, that can direct your business to different ways. And we sort of feel isolated. So what are some of the steps that you took that other leaders, you know, such as ourselves and people on the call, what are some of the steps that we could take that you can give advice on?
Oh, thank you so much, William. I appreciate it. Also, I just want to say that this is fantastic company to be in. I'm beyond excited that I've been invited to share. So thank you for the opportunity. And you know, it's really hard to follow Mikki and Todd. I tell you something. I mean, they were preaching. I was over here writing notes down. You know, so let's just give credit to them. And I know Damon will have some things to say as well. So let me just play my position. There is certainly a lot of emphasis right now on the missing Black executive in a lot of our corporate spaces. And as you mentioned, I've been doing this for some time at some of the biggest organizations in the world. And so it is not lost on me that there's always pressure on the Black executive to fix the issue. I found it very challenging in my own career because we are both the person who is supposed to be doing the job better than our counterparts, and then also bear the responsibility of recruiting and retaining our fellow Black executives when they make it through the door. It is a really challenging space to be in, but I will give this advice and this help, perhaps, for those who are not yet in the C-suite, because we often think that when we get to the C-suite is when we can make all the changes, that you have power and you're untouchable. But that is also not true. The real power comes from practice. You know, it comes from starting your influence when you are at the beginning and at mid-level, and then at almost senior leadership, and then at senior leadership, and then in the C-suite, and then on the board seats. That practice requires time, it requires patience, also requires lots and lots and lots of repetition. And so what happens is that when you are not yet in a managerial position and you're able to have a place of influence of your colleagues and of the people who are actually hiring, do it. And another challenge that I find that we have as Black people is often feeling like if we support or say, hey, listen, we need more Black people around here, somehow it will be seen as if we are biased and that we're not being objective. I have never understood that math because other people do it all the time without question and without apology.
Right.
And so I've found that at every job I have ever occupied, whether it was here at Endeavor or before this at Uber, before that at Apple, before that at Pepsi, before that at Spike Lee's ad agency, I have always advocated for us to be at the table. And let me be more specific. I have advocated for Black women to be at the table. And so it requires practice. And so I wouldn't sit here now and say that I have been able to bring along some of my dearest sisters along the journey if I hadn't been practicing it 20 years ago when I first began.
Love that, love that, wow. So then Damon, I'm just gonna ask for you to tag onto that with also knowing that to us as African Americans or Blacks, the doors to the boardrooms are often closed. So because of that, we don't actually get an equal seat at the table. And you've been a successful business person, what strategies can you recommend to overcome this challenge? And if you want to tag on to anything other questions that were been asked, feel free to do so.
Well, I have to tag on to Boz. I guess Boz and I go way back when she was just bad Boz. She picked up the bad ass along the way. But I will say what she said 100% is practice. And I will say this, what is it that you're practicing? Because the boardroom is far away, right? It's not when you're 20, it's probably not when you're 30. So what are you doing during that time period? You have to sharpen your skills. You have to sharpen your intellect. You have to sharpen everything you have in your toolkit, in your arsenal to be considered. Now, yeah, you know, we know we got to be twice as good and all that kind of stuff, but you really, really have to be that. And there is this, I don't know if it's crabs in a barrel, but there is a prevailing fear to hire Black people. And Boz shared it, that when you're trying to open the doors, you're seen a certain way when others do it. I know for me, I've worked on the agency side for the family of Nike companies, Pepsi, obviously, also Coca-Cola, Time Warner, Viacom. So I've worked with them all. And the challenge is that trust. But I've been able to be successful because I think I've brought a great team to the table. I think that I have a good idea of how to get someone, honestly, a raise, promotion, a bonus through the work we do. And to also just continue to get good. I mean, Bose, when we were first, at Pepsi, I had to be schooled in the beverage industry because I had come from the sports industry. I started the West Coast marketing office at Nike and worked there for a couple of years. So that's kind of what you have to do in order to build the trust. So when you talk about the boardroom, no, it starts when you're a manager. And what are you practicing? Are you getting good? Are you getting voice amongst your peers? And then when you move to senior manager or senior director, you still have to do those things. And to Bose's credit, I bear witness to it. She's done that. In my experience, there's not enough of us that do it because we don't have that courage. But part of it is us really presenting ourselves on the agency side or on the employee side or on the new hire side to be exemplary, what Todd shared in terms of excellence. So I think that's kind of where that practice begins. Now, why there's not more of us on boards, I don't know, because there's a lot of great talent out there. If you think of Bose, I hope I'm not overstepping, but Bose came up in the hip hop industry, right? So did I, where things were very good, where it was a little more accepting of saying, okay, let's listen and let's engage, this community. But we were able to develop marketing skills, finance, business, all of that kind of stuff. Why there's not more of us on boards at this moment, given the people who've come through all of those consumer products, I really don't know. But I know that the skill and talent is out there.
Wonderful. So then, Mikki, one of the things that Damon mentioned was about trust. And my question to you, being in the background and working with the Corporation of Essence that targeted to the Black female, I'm probably, and don't know if I'm misquoting here, but I'm going to assume that there were a lot of people of color in power. And with that being said, how did you guys get it done? And then do we have a responsibility to bring other people of color along to us? And what clear directives can we give to others looking about having inclusion in the workplace? Because now today, diversity and inclusion is a hot topic, and we've been getting a lot of calls from other organizations. And what they would do is, just put one or two of us in a position and think that that's enough when it actually is not enough. So I know that I have several questions in there, but I'm gonna let you talk on to that.
Well, it's a joy beyond measure. And certainly for the 30 years that I spent at the desk to work with people who were like-minded. And, one of the things that made it hum is because we served Black women. So I didn't get up every day and go to work for a company. I got up every day and went to work for Black women. That's how we saw it. In fact, when I first came to Essence in 1980, the edict was we put this magazine out for and about ourselves. And whatever you're going through, Black women are too. So if you got up every day and you understood that you served, I remember at one point the number was 16.2 million women or what have you, who are waiting for you in a room the world over for the answers, to hold up the mirror on Black womanhood because they didn't see themselves. Our concerns weren't solved. Nobody was talking to us about love, relationships, beauty being our most emotional purchase, and the list went on and on. So you didn't have to fight for trust because you were all bonded on the same goal to make sure that the lives of Black women was the experience that they wanted it to be and that they deserved. And no matter how hard the work was, certainly going out in the beauty industry, trying to help companies see us when in fact they didn't, I started to even hold breakfast for the industry so they would know how to talk to us, how to see us, what worked for us and what didn't, so it wasn't work. I remember James Baldwin paid a visit to us one day at Essence, and he talked to us about how privileged we were to do the work that we were doing. And when you hear things like that, you understand the difference between contributing and holding down a job. So, back to us, I think in terms of trust, if each of us, and I talk about this in Editor-in-Chief, because trust is a real issue. And we got to define how we be, so to speak, for ourselves. You start out by being the kind of person that you would want in your life. You start out coming to serve and not be served. You start out by understanding that you're going to link arms and aims together. For all this talk about diversity and inclusion, one of the notes I've made, I said that until we see people and not quotas, diversity and inclusion will only be a theory and not a truth.
Right.
So companies really have to get their houses in order, because talk won't cut it anymore. We see that in the protests. We see that in like-minded people. We see that in people who are tearing, barriers down as opposed to building walls. And so companies really have to get it together. They have to look around and see who they serve and not create this field of dreams of people, imaginary people that they want to serve. I know if Black people stopped buying, that many companies would go out of business.
Yes.
So, we have to be understanding of the truth. I think in every corridor, people who come to work have to be color brave and not color sensitive. That's another thing that's going to change it. And it really begins with leadership. And I wrote a note that you have to understand what's missing in your own company, because that's where change begins. If you're going to do business on the 90th floor, then look around the 90th floor, start there. And don't start with the one Black friend that you have in your life as the standard for the culture. So, yeah, I know that was a double barrel question. I'm sorry, I don't want to take this so much.
And let the church say.
That's right. Amen.
And keep going, Mikki. Keep
Amen.
going.
Go ahead.
Like, you just go ahead.
Okay. Well, then, so let me ask you this here. I'm going to ask this to Boz, because I share in that excitement, and I know many other event producers do, when we, being Black event professional, is that we love to be of service to all of our clients, but we're particularly happy and we're celebrating when we get Black celebrities, and believe me, we really work hard. And we work harder to make the Black celebrity events right. And we always probably, I'm going to say that most would probably do like me, under promise, over deliver, but everything would be smooth. But what's happening sometimes, Boz, is that the doors are not open for us. And then we see a lot of Black celebrities take their business to white event professionals, and we don't even get a seat at the table or an opportunity to bid on their projects. And some of these projects are their personal projects, as well as their companies that they represent. And that's been a little discouraging to the Black community and the event professionals. So is there a way of how can we get over that, at least be able to have a seat at the table? Because believe me, we know that we're going to do a good job. And I tell you, when we look around and we see that they're opening studios and we're not at the table, or they're having funerals and we're not even called, and but then the actors and actresses turn around and make the complaint that they're not necessarily getting roles because they're Black, or these companies target their businesses or make money off the Black community, and basically they're almost not practicing what they preach. And we don't really want to put them on front. We just want to have an opportunity to have a bid on the possibility of a job. So how do we, what do we do? We don't know what to do. Can you give us a suggestion?
This is a deep question. Okay, so I'm gonna answer it as honestly as I can, because I don't like to hide from the truth, and I believe that there is accountability on both ends. So let's start there.
Yes.
Because very much like the last answer that I gave about practice, it is true of this situation as well. This doesn't start when you become the celebrity. It doesn't start when you begin having the extra money to throw parties and extravagant events and then figure out who you're going to hire instead of calling your cousin like I do to come do something for you. You know, this starts way before then. And for me, it is especially important because you have to begin creating the habit of creating a network of people that you know and trust. Because these are all about trust relationships, right?
Okay.
Trust is either earned through the experience of working together, or it's earned because I saw somebody else's thing that I really liked. And therefore, I'm going to use the person who did that thing for them. So it is a sort of third-party trust. So what happens is if you haven't spent any time building the network, doing the event, even the small ones, to help gain the trust and the relationship, how can you call on someone when you are now throwing a big thing that is going to have all the eyeballs? That's one thing. On the other side of that, I think there's a real opportunity for people in the event space who want to build relationship to start early. It is not about waiting until somebody has a name, because I've been in those conversations too, where nobody wants to touch the person who's only got the 10,000 followers.
Right.
They want to wait until somebody has 1.5 million before they even consider helping them with an event. And so how about we all start the practice of building the relationships before we get to the high stakes ground?
Okay.
It works across many things. I mean, this could be an example, not even just for the event industry, but for all of our relationships. It works for the agency relationships that create marketing and branding. It begins with the PR companies who are doing the work. You know, it's like when celebrities become in crisis, or, you know, executives get in crisis, it's like, oh, now you're scrambling, looking around for somebody to say it in your voice. Well, if you didn't work with someone even in the beginning and they don't know you, then how are they going to help you when you actually need them? And so to me, it's a real course of action to begin practicing these relationships. And sometimes in the beginning, because we all know it is about, you know, making money at the end of the day, but how about we actually go back to our cultural roots and begin to barter early on? If you don't have the funds to be able to support each other the right way in the beginning, well, then can we barter? You know, you have something I want and I have something you want. Like, how do we form those relationships that allow the trust to build so that then as we grow in our influence and power, we're able to bring each other along?
I love that. I love that. That's wonderful. We'll take a note of that. I love that. So then, and Todd, I'll ask you this question because I know that you sit on a couple of boards and things like that, and Bo's brought about something that was really good. As leaders, we have a responsibility, I think, to give back, but we don't always make time or space or plan to give back. How can we change this mentality? Because I think giving back is, I build it into my everyday business platform. How can we change the mentality of giving back? And when I say that, I know that with some publications or some platforms, they will say something like, okay, well, we won't spotlight you or advertise you because maybe you don't subscribe to our services or platforms. But you could be doing a really, really good job in the community. I know that Mena and her sister this weekend, and I don't even think it was really highly promoted, but when they saw a need to make the first line people working in the hospital during this COVID crisis, they needed some comfort, and they went out and built these really beautiful comfort lounges for the doctors. And people don't talk about that, and people don't always take that initiative. And similar to what Bo says, we're so anxious in receiving and getting, but we don't give back. So is that important to you?
It is 5,000% important. And you know, that is like my mantra, give back. People always ask that question. We so want, but understand the root and the principle of why you are giving back, because as Black people who have been given many things. And as entrepreneurs or business owners or professionals, when you have those opportunities, it is so important to take care of your own community. But even further is we are seeing right now, if you are not taking action, you can't be complaining. And action means being involved in the community. Action means being involved in voting. Action means taking greater acknowledgement of what's happening around you. And so how do you do that? It's really important. Stop looking so inward of yourself and being so selfish. And instead of giving back because it's going to make your business look good or make you look good, do it because you care. Do it because find the thing that you are passionate about that really connects to you. Everyone has something that connects to their passion in terms of how they can make a difference in their community. There are thousands, millions of organizations in our cities that we live in our local communities that you can get involved in with donating time. I will give you a really good example. I started my career straight out of college. I decided I was going to start my business out of UCLA. I was playing the UCLA Jazz and Reggae Festival. I was like, I am not going to work for anyone. I'm just going to launch this event business. And I did that, but really didn't have any clients. But what I did with all that extra free time was start to volunteer and get involved with nonprofit organizations. And what that led me to do was fall in love with different passions for giving back into the community. And further from there, I was able to build a business where I was servicing nonprofit clients. But that was because I had put in the work, giving back, and I had no expectation of producing nonprofit events, but it came right to me because it was natural. It was natural because I was giving back at the same time being exposed to a new community, new opportunities, different people, and my network was growing. And so it's important to get involved, but get involved for the right reasons and also not be so threatened or scared of getting involved, because I think it's easy. People are like, well, I don't even know how to start or where to go. There are tons of volunteer opportunities and there's tons of organizations. Find the organization you love or you like and tell them you want to get involved, you want to support. It's important for more African Americans to get involved with nonprofit organizations and sit on their boards, especially the organizations that support our most at risk and our most marginalized within our own community. Organizations like the Urban League, Boys and Girls Club, Community Coalition, Brotherhood Crusade, all of those orgs who are putting back resources into our community, they are dying for professionals who have expertise, who can give of some time. And you will see the ever increasing response that you will get back from that and the reward.
So that sort of ties into what Boz was speaking of earlier, the building relationships. So I've heard trust is important. I've heard building relationship is important. And so Damon, on top of those two things, over the years, what qualities and characteristics do you look for when you're hiring someone? And more importantly, like on the executive or in leadership levels, because we really want to learn how to sharpen our skills to be leaders in the industry. So what qualities and characteristics would you look for in an individual?
One is intellect. And when I say intellect, that is some degree of reading, writing, and computing, right? And understanding those things, because that's a method of communication. Two, business savvy. And when I say savvy, a lot of the things I've done have been around, it has been around sports, it's been around entertainment, culture, you know, the melding, the intersection of all of that. So you kind of have to know the consumer. You have to be able to communicate plans that will delight the consumer, similar how Mikki shared, serving women. For me, it's funny when she said that, I always saw the work I did as serving my community and serving Black boys, because at least when I worked in North America in sports, that's what it was all about. Everyone else enjoyed it, but the core of it was Black boys. And then overseas it was a totally different thing. It was still boys, and that was my thing, right? So I think you have to have that intellect. You also have to have just those basic things to be able to communicate, take an idea that's here and put it on paper to communicate. And the last thing, you got to have a passion. And I take that over everything. You know, if you had a passion, that means you'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. So I think that that's the bundle I look at with just any type of hire. And I've hired a lot of people through my agencies, through different tours I've done all the time. You know, I was sharing with one of my colleagues about a guy who cried because we were going to cut his budget. And since he showed so much passion, I went to the boss's boss and got him more money to do his thing, because I had never seen a grown man cry and be that passionate over a budget, you know? And so those are the types of things. Now, when you talk about leaders and executives, people got to listen to you. You know, you can be the smartest person in the room, the most qualified, all that, most everything. But if no one's listening to you, can't do it. You can't lead like that. So I think when I look at leaders, execs, and things like that, if they lead the people, great. I mean, even if I'm in charge, I'll sit in the back and get out the room. But if you can lead the people, hey, here's the keys to the car, you know? So those are the things that I will look for in terms of come on and do anything, or, you know, that executive, that leader. Once again, if nobody's following you, you ain't a leader, you know? So I think that's the bundle of characteristics that I look for. And it doesn't change regardless of what continent you on. You know, I've been able to identify that in Asia, in South America, in Europe, those things remain clear. Those characteristics remain clear. And once again, cultural sensitivity is huge when you talk about consumers, because that's kind of what I would be charged to do. I just would help companies sell more product, help companies market, and help companies build their brand, which to me, you asked about sales, marketing. It's a third one. It's sales, is marketing, is brand. So I would help dimensionalize that with leadership to once again, make people buy more product and make people buy a specific product and make them take action.
Wonderful. So, and Mikki and Boz, I'm going to ask you about these two questions. The next question. Mikki, I guess we would start with saying that a lot of times we often see that a lot of companies shy away from advertising, let's say specifically in Black bridal magazines. When I go through the bridal magazines such as the Be Collective or Mona Lucci, we see all of these beautiful Black faces, but we don't see any advertisers in there from, like, say, white suppliers. And then also on the other hand, we don't see a lot of white magazines that would put Black faces on the front of them. We don't see, unless it's a celebrity, then they want to get our celebrity client and have them on the cover of their magazine. So I guess my question would be, how do we get companies and organizations to spend their dollars you know, with us? Because at the end of the day, we know that we are the change makers. We know that we are the trendsetters. We know that we are the dollar spent. We're the people that spend the dollars. Is there specific action items that we can do to almost open those doors for us? And then I would say the same with Boz is, how do we get even some of our people, our own actors or people in the entertainment executives to look at us for opportunities to come to the door? How do we market? How do we get them to, I think you understand my question.
Yeah. Sure. You know, it's very interesting because in my role as beauty and cover director, sales was not on my job description.
Okay.
And it was so funny because you know, they handed me a job description that talked about affirming the culture's definition of beauty and so forth. But it wasn't long before they asked me to write my own because I added so much to it. And it got to the point where, especially during the 80s and 90s, again, where we were the invisible women, where there weren't any creatives that spoke to us. There wasn't even the language that made sense to us. You know, products were talking about, you know, wrinkling, and, you know, by the time sisters wrinkles, they've earned every one of them, and you better not talk to them about any wrinkles. So I took it upon myself, knowing how hard we work for our money, to go out and educate companies myself. And so you really have to cross that line. You know, back in the day, they talked about it as church and state. Well, I went to church and to state, whatever, because I feel like we stand no chance at winning if we don't raise the issues. So I raise the issues. And I would sometimes tell marketing people, you know, they explain to you who I am, right? Because I'm the activist. Yes, it's not going to be good, but you're going to take this medicine. It's going to help you feel better about yourself. And it got so to a point where I could call and get ads on the phone in Essence magazine. So, but you have to make it real for people. You can't assume that they understand. It's not that we don't index well. It's not that the numbers don't look phenomenal for Black people and spending habits across all industries. Is that people are still scratching their head because they don't understand how nor why. They don't understand that we don't buy products, that we in fact buy experiences that we want to know. That it's important that we hunger for images of ourselves, you know, that we don't, that beauty even for us is an emotional purchase. It's not about replacing a lipstick. It never was about that. Otherwise we wouldn't own so many. So you have to make it real for people. You know, Booker T. Washington said it best. He said, excellence is to do a common thing in an uncommon way. And I really feel that we have to take the uncommon approach. You know, as I've said, out of emergency comes emergence. So here we are. You know, someone told me last month, you know, I want to, you know, get this ad. I want to get into this business. And how do I get people? I said, right now you can get everybody because they're sitting at home. They can't go anywhere and neither can you. So now it's time for you to boldly pick up the phone and tell them what the value that you add and the audience that walks in the door with you. You have to make it real for them. And I think that we can't shrink back. We can't diminish our light. You know, I want to see people get shades because this light is so bright. I'm not. So, but yeah, but you have to teach. You have to inform. You have to inspire. You have to teach, and you have to hold them accountable. I almost wish that in ad agencies that there was an incentive for being the truth of who you say you are. So if diversity and inclusion is something you're charged with, if there's an incentive program, you're going to do more than see people as numbers.
Right, right.
Yeah. Accountability.
I love that.
Excellent.
Accountability.
Good. Boz, you want to add on to that?
Well, I'll take it from the other side, right? Because I've certainly been in the company that makes the decision on the spending. And here's the insight I would give to us to give us a little more power as to how some of these decisions are made. There is one side of it, which we've been utilizing in this day and age around boycotting. But I'll give you another, which is that, you know, we're in a day of reckoning, right? A time of reckoning. I have never, in all of the years I've spent in corporate America, in these hallways, in the boardrooms, in this seat, have seen so much discussion around Blackness. Never. Clearly, we've been in this position for a long time. We all know that. All of us on this call have known that. But I have never seen the kind of conversations I'm having right now. And that is a real deal. So my advice and my thought is that we need to storm the castle. This is not about sitting back. This is about absolutely going in full force. We need to be heard. So send every email, send every text message, storm the IG accounts, all of them. Say we want to see more of us. We want to see the spending in these spaces. Storm the castle. It is our time right now, and they are listening and they are afraid. So go storm it.
Yes.
Wow.
Can I add to that? And it's not just us. Yeah, that's the hashtag. That's the hashtag. You know, that's why she badass. That's why she badass. But it's not only, it's interesting because as she was talking, I've talked to no less than 4 footwear companies, a couple of NBA, NFL, they're all calling, not just the Black friend thing, but they're calling for every reason Boz just shared. They are confused, they don't know, and they're in a defense mode. And when I say defense, they just see everything that's brewing. So it just makes it, we should storm the castle, but not just us, but as we circle around the sports and entertainment, and that's what we're talking about, from the actual talent to the everyday worker, to the executive, to everybody storming the castle. It has to be that kind of movement, because we'll just scratch the surface if it's a couple businesses out there just looking for more business. We have to enlist the more people, you know, that are C-suite like a Bose, but also all of our sports and entertainers that have a sensibility to our cause. And even if they spent a different way, now is the time also, because once again, the conversations are happening. We need to extend the conversations to all Black folks, because we mean something in those two, within sports and entertainment. So I would say let's not forget about getting everyone on board and figuring out if it is storming, you know, storming the castle or storm the castle. That's the thing. But we need just more than businesses. We need everybody on this thing, because now is the time. It can't go back to where it was this time last year.
Love that. Love that. I'm going to turn to Mena. Mena, do we have any questions out there?
We do, and we don't want to end this the webinar, but we do want to respect Bose's time, and she's going to have to be leaving us soon. There's tons of questions for you, Bose. So I'm just going to get to a couple before you have to jump, and then we'll get back into the conversation. So one of the questions that we have is, how can we bridge the gap between us and agents and or managers in Hollywood, as they tend to be the gatekeepers to Black celebrities, high net worth individuals, and in Hollywood? So how do we bridge that gap?
Yeah, well, that's a really deep question also, because it begins with how we are not only presenting and talking about what our capabilities are, but also using the network. You know, right now there's a real call to action for allyship. And again, almost like I just said about storming the castle, use the allies. There's a whole lot of people right now who are reaching out their hand and saying, I don't know what to do. I'm not quite sure how to help. Again, I've been in many of those conversations about narratives and storytelling and how to get more diverse stories on TV and in film. Well, again, you know, sometimes I just sit there and I'm just smiling like, yeah, we've had this conversation before. You know, we've had this conversation before, but you're asking now, okay. The point is that there are a lot of people who are looking for allies. So I would say, again, the time is right now. You know, if you have already tried to create the bridge, if you've already reached out to make that, you know, that note or to pitch your idea, do it again, do it right now. Because right now, everybody's looking for the answer. And you know what, let me just actually say this as well. I've seen a lot of conversations, especially on social media, with a point to companies or brands or executives or whoever who are just now turning on, right? Who are just now saying, oh, I want to do something. You know what? Great, fantastic. You're going to do it right now. So don't be afraid of that. You know, instead of our attitude, which is like, oh, well, you didn't say it yesterday. You know what? They're saying it today. Go get it. And so to me, there's a real advantage in this moment. Let's use every advantage that we have in order to push the conversation forward. So yes, if you tried that relationship a year ago or 2 years ago, it's all right. They listening right now. Go ahead and go get it.
Gotcha.
Right. Another question that we got is, how are you getting through this time at the level that you're at, you know, being one of the very few Black people and women in leadership positions at these companies? And do you really see that action is happening at your level? Like, do you really feel like change is being made besides just the conversations?
Whew, okay.
They're coming for you, Bose.
You know, I'm like, wow, okay. You know what? I'm a faithful woman. I very much believe in God and have prayed for a long time to be in this position. I've worked very hard to be in this position, but I prayed for it. And so I believe very deeply that the will of God never took me where the grace of God could not keep me.
Oh.
And so that's how I am staying afloat in this very moment, that I recognize the privilege of being in the room and of having to be representative for a lot of people. I don't take it lightly. And even at night when I go to bed, and sometimes I just, either I'm dropping in bed or I can't sleep because I'm so mad. But I understand the privilege and the responsibility that I have, and I don't shirk it at all. And so I am absolutely going forward. I wake up every day knowing that maybe I'm going to have a frustrating conversation that day with some people who are still asking, how do I do this? But It's okay. I'm going to give you the answer, and it's going to be positive, it's going to be tactical, and it's going to be accountable. And so that's the way I'm getting through it now. And again, to the question about if I feel like businesses or brands are, truthful or executing, I would say again that this is the first time I've ever seen so much conversation. Now, the good news is, out of a lot of conversation, of course, we're not going to get 100% execution out of those conversations, but it will be a better percentage than what we've ever seen. Also, again, I think we as a community are more awake. We are holding people more accountable than we ever have. And so I would encourage us to keep pushing, because I'm hearing it on the other end. These conversations are about the things that are being said on the public and brand IG messages and Twitter and the letters. I mean, these are real conversations that are happening. So I would say that we continue to persist. And I know that there's going to be some action based off of this very moment in time. I believe it.
And you pretty much kind of answered the last question that was directed towards you in regards to, having this not just be a short-term trend. I think some people feel like, in a couple of months, this is just gonna blow over and it's gonna go on to something else that's, gonna be in a cycle. And so what the question was, how do we make sure that it doesn't become a short-term trend, and will it go, and that it doesn't go any further than just social media campaigns.
Did you freeze up there?
Yeah, no, I got it. I heard Mena.
Okay.
Okay, so this is going to be a shorter answer, but, and perhaps a historical one to just keep us grounded, right? We've been at this for 400 years.
Yes.
This is not the first time we've met issues, challenges. We've asked for reparations and repercussions to the damage of our bodies, our communities. And so we have to stay persistent. We owe it not just to ourselves and our future, because I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I must do this in order to make sure that she doesn't have to. Unfortunately, we have seen from our own past that this is a conversation that continues to repeat itself. We make steps forward, and then there are steps back. And then we go forward, and there's a few steps back. So we can't become despondent in that battle. There are going to be lots of wins in this moment. And there may be some fallback, but doesn't mean that we don't keep pushing forward. We have to. I remember, of course, the Rodney King attack, beating, and then the acquittal of his attackers, and the riots that ensued afterwards, and the hurt and the pain and the changes that were trying to be made then. And it is frustrating to think that we are still having those similar conversations now. But I would say we must persist. We must persist. We must persist.
Persist. Thank you. So I know you're going to have to jump in, and both. Thank you for all of the wealth of knowledge that you've shared with us today. I know you have a project that you're working on, the Badass Workshop. I've signed up. And can you tell us a little bit more about that, and then just anything else that you're working on for our lovely viewers that are here.
Well, thank you. Yes, I do appreciate that. It's interesting as we've all been talking, and of course I have to give big shout out to Mikki because she has been goals for me for a long time. I mean, for a very, very long time. And I've always been watching her in awe of how she moves. I mean, look at her now. She just slayed the whole thing. I mean, look at this. I mean, how do we look like this at home? Like, it's incredible. But in any case, I have long wanted to also pass down the information that I have. And that doesn't mean that I'm sitting necessarily from just a point of teaching, but rather sharing, because I think that we're all better when we understand what is happening around us. We've seen it happen in a lot of communities, in these business seats that I'm in. I can't tell you how many advisors and real mentors there are for other people. And the mentorship is not some awkward coffee every other month or, every quarter, but it is the daily interaction. It is the passed on knowledge of how to negotiate contracts, of how to ask for the promotion, of how to even address somebody you don't know. all of these tools that we don't necessarily have the access to because we've been lied to about how many of us can actually be in the room, therefore we safeguard the information. So I'm opening up the safe. And that's what I plan to do with the workshop, is to share everything that I know. I hope that there are more of us in these rooms, that we're better prepared. And if there's anything I've learned, I want to share it all. So here we go.
Go. Thank you so much. And no, you have to jump. If there's anything else that you want to say,
Yeah.
or if you guys want to make some last comments.
I do. I would just want to ask if people on the line, the workshop is open to everyone. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
To get more information about it, where should we direct them?
Just www.thebadassworkshop.com.
Love that.
That's what we're doing. But I do want to thank you again. I want to thank all of you, and Damon, as he said, I mean, I said before this in our prep time that, you know, he was day zero for me, not even day one, you know, in really supporting, working with me, talking with me, advising me very much in the early days of my career. And to see him now is just, it's so heartwarming, and it's a very much a full circle moment. So I'm so thankful for you. And of course, Todd, it's been brilliant listening to your words of encouragement, your advice. I took those to heart too. I was looking for my pen just, you know, when you started off, I was like, dang, straight out the gate. So thank you so much. And William, I certainly appreciate you too. And Mena, thanks for organizing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hi.
So we're going to go back to questions. Is that correct?
No, you could go back and then
I could go back?
Yes.
Okay, great. So one of the things I do want to ask, because we've been speaking a lot about success and how do you achieve success and different things like that, but we know that on the way up, you have a couple of pitfalls. So Mikki, have you ever had a situation with a pitfall or perceived pitfall? And if so, how did you overcome it? And what did you learn?
Wow, I had to go back and look that one up when I saw that question. Because yeah, I absolutely have. And it's so interesting because what I have learned to do is to spin them in my favor. And, you know, an elder taught me a long time ago that, you know, every pitfall means that you have to be creative, not defeated. But the main thing is while you're in the valley to make sure you get the lessons. So when you rise again, you understand what to do to sustain it. And so, yeah, I've had a number of them. And as the Bible says, I was glad that I had been afflicted because those were the things that I learned the most from. And so if you don't go through anything, you really don't have much substance. You know, pitfalls, setbacks, whatever you want to name them. The things that come to test you to see who you are or seemingly to cause you to fail. You know, those are the moments where you learn the most if you grow through them. I learned early on not to just go through them. When you go through something, you want it to hurry up and be over, and you're going to miss a lot of things. But when you grow through them, you take the time to get the understanding. How did I get here? You know, what could I have done differently? What has this come to teach me? Who were my counselors when I started this? A lot of times we start out on things on our own. And what I've learned is that your greatness is not designed to operate in isolation. And that comes back to what I said earlier about the importance of linking arms and aims with the right people. In fact, in my book, I call it a celebration circle, that you ought to have those people around you whose role it is to push, polish, and check you. You see, that's going to cut some of your losses or cut some of your pitfalls, if you will. So yeah, I've been through too many to name for this broadcast. You know, we'd have to have a special pitfall day. But yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's very interesting. So Damon and Todd, I both ask you both of this. Can you describe a situation where you really, really wanted to accomplish something and for whatever reason it was, you didn't accomplish it, and how did you overcome the feeling of defeat?
I'll jump right in. I think that the way that I overcame defeat was simply not allowing it to break me and really keeping clear goals and a larger objective of what that is, putting your eye on that prize. Yeah, you might have a setback, you might have had a failure with this one thing, but knowing that there's something even greater and bigger beyond, and putting your focus back to that. If you, much as what Mikki said, like, if you have not failed, you haven't had those pitfalls, you really can't achieve success, because you don't have those things to help teach you along the way, to help you make you a stronger, better leader and business owner or professional. And I think that it was just about not letting it knock me completely to the ground. You take your moments, you cry, you weep, you think about it, you meditate, and then you get back up and you get back in line and push, knowing that you still can achieve that goal. And you might have felt that it was a colossal mess up, right? Or a colossal failure. Only you are making it that. So don't feed into that negative energy of what it was. Move beyond that and say, I can start anew. We all are given a new opportunity every single day, and make right about it, and then keep pushing forward.
Love it.
Yeah, I think failing and being a failure are two totally different things. And if you aren't pressing yourself to failing, then you're not getting yourself out there for the big risk. You have to risk a lot. So anybody, it's like when young people say, oh, I can't find a job. How many no's have you gotten? Well, okay, you're not trying until you get a lot of no's. You're not pressing yourself until you can say, I got failures, because I press the limit so much in a lot of the stuff that I do. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, so every day I don't create an invoice, I'm failing. That's my thinking on it. But so I think that's the thing. Like, press to the failure, because if you're pressing to a failure, to failing, you're not seeing yourself as a failure. And as Mikki said, if you don't see pitfalls, then what do you just, you gotta acknowledge a pitfall in order to acknowledge the mountaintop, right? So that's what I would share to anybody out there that's really, especially trying to do our business. Like, even in our business as events, I can't say anyone who has 100% grade out on a production. There's always margin, right? There's always, right? And that's a margin of failure. I call that the gap. And if you're not constantly attacking that gap between what pure and true excellence is and where you're landing, you're not growing. I always say, when you get a test back and you got a 96, what's everybody looking at?
Right.
The 4%.
Right.
Right? So you just take a look at the 4% and keep it moving. Right. So I think you should be pressing the failing, but it doesn't make you a failure.
I love that. I love that. So then, Mikki, as you know, that the Black Table, we're a collective, and we're a collective that's, we're really dedicated to working together with each other. We're dedicated to pulling our resources together. We're dedicated to improving the positioning of Blacks within the special event industry. So it's not about us. It's about Blacks in our industry as an entirety. We often see that a lot of people feel that you're justified based on the number of followers that you have, your popularity on Instagram or what have you. Can you give us an encouragement about the importance of working together and how we, as the Black Table, as well as the people on the call, could work together and advance our positioning within the special events industry? I'd like to hear your take on it, because I'm sure that you've had to do that with your success at Essence.
One of the things, one of the quotes that stands out for me comes from writer Freya Stark, and she said, there can be no happiness if the things we do are different from the things we believe in. And so it really comes down to, how passionate are you about people and what you provide for them? I think at this point in our history, given all that our ancestors have come through, I mean, they gave gifts that they never received receipts for. gave up their names, their languages, and yet they were put together, tribes that didn't even speak the same language and what have you, and they made it work. And they made a way out of no way. And so I think it rests with us. It rests on our shoulders in the here and now to get this not only right, but to get it better. There is no reason that what I have, linking my arms and aims with you and what you have, that we can't be colossal together. And I want us to not, I have 2 daughters and a son, and this is the next generation of this family that's not that far removed from slavery. And I want their conversation to be totally different. So I really want this conversation to the struggle, if you will, to end with us. We have the power to define that. And I think particularly in this industry, we taught this country how to entertain. We taught this country how to entertain for free.
Yes.
And the Bible says, give honor to whom honor is due. That was us. So if you got queens and kings living in slave cabins and they're teaching you this whole Southern experience that has been credited to everybody else but us, here we are in the entertainment industry. Here we are in the special events industry. Here we are in what I call the infotainment industry. We just ought to be able to do this well. We just ought to be able to curate even lifestyle experience that people never dreamed they wanted, just by the brilliance that lies within each of us. Mm-hmm. And so we have to stop looking at just even financial gain and begin to understand, as seed sowers, the greatest prosperity happens when we multiply and strengthen our community at large, when we multiply and strengthen all of those who are in this industry for a greater purpose. We have been isolated for too long, and as long as people can get you in isolation and again make you think there's only room for one of you to walk through the door, it's the oldest evil at work. If you go back to Genesis, when Satan approached Eve, he said he's gonna tell us something else on the down low that God said different. Isolation, it is still crippling us to this day, and we get the power to define change. So let's do it.
I love that. And one of the things that I learned from you is that when we isolate, we become prey.
Right. Absolutely. Because what happens, you always go after the one that's all by themselves. Because first of all, they don't even know how to survive in the going off there, and some of us think, well, I'll go off here because I got this on lockdown. Wait a minute. Strength in numbers. It's an old adage, but it's still true. That's why I tell folks, everything old isn't antiquated. You better take those lessons with you. Right. Yeah, so, we got to stop this. That's why I encourage us all to, again, have celebration circles. Have people around you who will keep you from having the limited view. If God says we created in his image, then our views ought to be divine. They ought to be bigger than. They ought to be abundant. They ought to understand that there's room for everybody. And if I link what I do and what you do, wow. How awesome is that going to be? And we have the opportunity to create new lanes. For example, 6 years into my tenure, I pitched for the position of cover editor, and I became beauty and cover director. The magazine had never had a cover editor before, but I had a vision for it where I wanted to take the cover of the only magazine on the newsstand that spoke to Black women, that it had to have a distinctive look in a sea of whiteness, because half the time it was covered up, because even the newsstand sellers didn't think it was important. And we were also 75% subscribers. So they didn't count on us coming to the newsstand, but you know what? That was limited thinking. And so for me, I said, no, we're gonna make this magazine, this cover so signature that if it is covered up, if the logo's covered up, Black women gonna know how to find it. Wow. So I didn't wait for somebody else to say, oh, here's room for a position. created it. And that's what we have to do. We have opportunities, and we know what opportunity looks like. Why aren't we creating it instead of waiting to be served?
Mm.
No, I don't buy that.
Okay, I love that. Mena, do you have any questions there have come in?
We have so many questions.
Yeah, so
Chat and questions are on fire. Mikki, thank you for that. That was so amazing and such a word, and gave me chills. And
Blazing hot, spitting fire.
well, okay, well.
So yeah, do you want me to go to a couple of questions? I know we're
Yeah, why don't we go to a couple of questions?
Okay. So 1 second, let me get in.
In the meantime.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay, so Damon, actually we could do a little bit of a recap because we've learned about trust, we've learned about responsibility, passion, storm the castles, the importance of celebration circles, and I really got the really understanding of the title Will and Grace.
One, my favorite hashtag is Dream Live, because we need to stop daydreaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dream Live.
Dream Live. Yeah.
I appreciate
So
it.
this is
Yeah. You know, vision without execution is hallucinating. We're too grown to be hallucinating. We got to dream live.
I love that.
so this isn't for anyone in particular. So whoever this resonates with, feel free to answer. Why is there always a cap/max for the amount of POCs, people of color, that can be on a team?
Fear.
Mm.
That's why, because fear is at the table. Because people fear the brilliance that we bring. Yeah, absolutely. So again, it was like I was saying earlier, people have to become color brave instead of color sensitive. And so this is a time for us to educate, because right now everybody is listening. Everybody that has any kind of common sense is humbled by what's going on. So this is a time for us to educate. And we have to also, my mother taught me to stop looking for people, stop looking for yourself in other people.
Yes.
That's a unique understanding that you have. And if you want them to understand better, then you have to teach. Stop assuming that they know. Stop looking for yourself in other people.
Right.
So fear is what keeps that from happening. Yeah.
And Mikki, I want to tie into that about the limitation of people of color. And I know that I can say for certain, my company is made up of all Blacks, as you know. But you know, my team is educated. They provide excellent service. They speak well. They have great attitudes. Should we be fearful? You know, some Blacks get afraid or uncomfortable being in a scenario with all Blacks.
You know, that's foreign to me. You know, working all these years in the company of us and beholding our excellence and how we work, first of all, 3 times as hard for our psychic income. So that excellence that we bring, that's absolutely foreign to me. It's been, I have not worked outside of us, if you will, since high school, post high school. So you know, I'm really gonna have to go in the attic up here to even relate to that. But that's totally foreign to me, because I know the truth of who we are. But I understand I have to labor to help other people to get it. I understand. That's a given. Yeah.
You know, I want to add to that. I think that it's important for us for those who have not or don't, to break it. You know, if you've been in that position or you've been afraid, now is the time to break it. And ask yourself, why have you not been doing that? I remember very, you know, a clear memory of working for a Black client who asked me, who told me that my staff was not diverse enough because it wasn't all Black team. They wanted to see more others in the mix. And I think that we have to challenge those sort of thoughts. And now is the time for that shakeup. And now is the time to say, no, I'm rolling with an all Black team, and that is 1,000,000% okay. That is 100% okay, because that is who I am. That's who my business is. And if it's not, then you know what? There's a different kind of business and world for you.
Right. I agree.
I'd say in my history, I've worked with tons of different companies, and I would say I've had probably about 3 or 4 situations where we were too Black. And one of those situations was so weird to me because we purposely were 40% white. And because of the leadership was Black voices, they assumed that we were a Black company. When I first started Nike many years ago, people thought Nike was a Black company because the head of New York, Chicago, and LA, at least in basketball, were Black guys. So I think that we do have to be sensitive to, one, be highly talented. Like everything you said, William, you said, oh, we're educated, we're well-spoken. That sounded like some stuff in the 60s that you only put with Black folks. Because I've seen some dumb white organizations, dumb white agencies did the job because it was white. They weren't better. So I think that we should strive to be diverse. And hey, let's face it, if the client wants that, we have to address that. Now, I don't know how we go about addressing it, but we have to address the client needs. Now, we do have to get more people who have different sensibility, look at talent, and not question, how people look, but it's about comfort, because I know there is, as Mikki said, there's fear. There's fear with non-Blacks, and there's fear with Blacks, and it's 2 different dynamics of fear, and that's not a good place to be. In terms of trying to work trust relationships, it's not going to work. So if we fear, they're not going to hire us, and if the non-Blacks fear, they're not going to hire us either. So it's building that trust in that relationship somehow, some way.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful. Mena, you have a question?
Yes, so this is to Mikki. So we all know that relationships are incredibly important, but the door to even create those relationships is often narrow. This is actually from Miss Diane Valentine. She's been working in Hollywood for a long time, and she finds that the more of us she wrote this I've been working in Hollywood a long time, and I find the more you as a business owner give away in this town, the more that is taken from us. How would you suggest balancing that without cheapening your gifts?
I think that, and big hug out to Diane Valentine. First of all, you really do have to set boundaries. Otherwise, people will set them for you, and they will feel like you owe them. And that's really something that I just don't understand. And it's not unique to that region, but you do have to set boundaries. You do have to know your value, and no one gets to decide what you give but you. And so I think that a lot of people have gotten it twisted, especially when it comes to us. The cup is always, there's always that, can you give me more of this? Well, if you do this for me, I can introduce you to that. And so, no, money is still green, and goodwill doesn't show up at the bank. So you get to decide how much you're going to give. I even tell people, I choose the charities that I want. You don't get to choose them for me. So every can run in the door under charity. Well, I think you should do this. And if you do that, and I know you did that for me last time, but I think you could do a little more this time. And then I could introduce you to, so no, because at the end of the day, the work speaks for itself. That's why they want the work. That's why they want what you bring to the table. And so if they believe in the work, they have to put up. And if not, you know how to showcase the work. Yeah, so know the difference between favors, charity, and what you want to bestow on people.
We're getting a lot of questions just about holding our white counterparts accountable. And just not letting this moment pass. I think that it's great that we're having these conversations and that we're expressing, how there's a need for change. And we're even coming to, the table with action items of what we can do to make sure that those changes occur. But how do we hold people that are in power, influences, that are influencers and that, have influence over decision-making? How do we keep holding them accountable? And I think this is just, out of all the questions, it just keeps popping up. I think people really want to know some action items of what can we do besides storming the castle, right? We've stormed the castle, we have their voice, or we have their ear to our voice. Now they say that they're going to take this action. How do we make sure that that action is taken and we're holding them accountable?
So one of the things that I learned is to be risk adverse is to be success adverse. And you have to be willing to take the risk, because you're not only speaking for yourself, you're speaking for others. And if you don't storm the castle and make sure that the door comes off the hinges, then others can't come behind you. So you really have to move self out of the way. That's what I've learned. And I was willing to have the uncomfortable conversations. And I didn't mind. Because the truth of the matter is, once you move out of your comfort zone, you really step into your power zone. It's not going to be comfortable, but you're going to be stronger for it. And so when people proclaim to be something, or when a company has a mission statement and you're engaged with them, you have a right to see that that becomes their truth, and that they become who they say they are. Because it's not just talk, because again, talk is cheap, and it's time for make some changes. And so then there's that thing called follow-up. I'm not afraid to follow up with people and say, even to send an email. And I'll tell people, I'm not going to stalk you, but I'm certainly going to follow up, because it's not about me. So you mentioned the last time in the conversation that you were going to talk to X, Y, and Z. Why can't see if you could bring this to the agency, or if the next time around you do so and so. Well, how is that going? How can I help? Can I be a voice for you? Why don't you have some of us at the table so it takes the weight off you? Give them the way, because sometimes, they need a walker for that. They need crutches for that. Whatever they need, be that, because that's help all of us.
And just to give a little bit of, if you go to the Black Table, to our IG, we actually came up with a very quick guide of 10 steps, action steps that you can take that address the inequalities and injustices that we face in the event industry. However, these kind of go across the board. So whatever industry that you're in, some of these tips that we have come up with can help you, be able to address and hold people accountable to what they're saying that they're going to do to address the diversity issue that we have. And so if you go to the Black Table _ on Instagram, that you can find them there. And, if you guys have any other, tips, we're building this guide to be able to share with our Black Table family, so that people can have, when they're having these conversations about diversity and inclusion and being asked, what can we do to solve this problem? There are these tips that you can use as like a cornerstone and as a guide to be able to lead the conversations and actually take action. So make sure you go to the Black Table _ and you can find some there as well.
And Mena, can I jump in there? I would like to let people know that I refuse to take no from someone that does not have the power to give you yes. You have to know who you're talking to. Some of the people that we're concerned about making a difference, they don't have the power or the authority to make the difference. And so we give them so much weight, and we have to educate our thought process. We have to move it up to a higher level. And I know that we're speaking a lot about vendors, and I'm not discounting vendors in any way, but we need to be more in leadership positions. We need to be in executive positions. We need to be in positions where we would have the authority to make the decisions, because once we sit in those positions, we know who to pull along. Yeah. So you have to identify who the people are that you are actually talking to, because I refuse to accept no from someone that don't have the authority to give me yes. And oftentimes you find that those who give you no, they don't even have the authority to give a yes or green light anything. And we have to, that's just noise, and we have to eliminate that noise from us. So with that, as we draw the conclusion, Todd, you have anything else that you want to add? I go to Todd, then we go to Damon, and then Mikki, want to close it out, and then please tell us about your books and how we can make the purchase and all of those things, please.
So I just want to say thank you, Mikki and Boz, for joining our Black Table conversation with us. Thank you to my colleagues, my co-founders, and all of our other co-founders and team members who are not part of this conversation right now, but are definitely in the chat. I want to encourage people to stay motivated and stay inspired. This is an incredible moment. This is a moment we've been waiting for. And so, you know, there's no time to, I think, as Boz said earlier, to sit and wait for them to call us. It's time to go. And it's time to take all those things we've learned, take the moment that we had to rest during the first half of this global, health pandemic that happened that shut us at home and is still keeping us inside. But we were, dealing with all of the side effects, the mental state of it all, adjusting to our schedules. We're ready. We're ready. We're prepared. Go out there, take everything take that time that you invested back into yourself to go and sell yourself and sell your brand and find your partners and find your collectives. And as Mikki said, find your celebration circle. I'm using that, Mikki. I love that. Because this is our time. And if we don't take advantage of this time, we will not get where we ultimately need to be. And we've never been more prepared. So let the self-doubt, let it go. Let it go and leave it at the door. It's time to push forward. Wow. And so please use the Black Table as a resource. Follow us on Instagram. We have a website. We are going to be disseminating more and more information, helping the entire event community figure out how to access opportunities and resources. So use us. And I think use us all. You can reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to always be a source and support to my community. So thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Amen.
So from an action, everything Todd said was fabulous. I would say this, as Boz shared, go out and whatever you were pitching before, go out and get no's. I would invite everyone to put a wish list of 10 people, entities, businesses that you want to be in business with, and make them give you an answer. Because a lot of times we just don't get the no. We get the maybe, and then it goes away. I mean, how would we feel if we had a list, like I see the Trump list, all the Trump supporters, and yeah, I don't support those companies anymore. But what about the companies that don't have Black board members? What about the companies that don't have Black leadership and executive and all of that? Get that information and do something with it. Either create some pressure, or I guarantee if you take your dollar away, action will happen. But I would just say, hey, put your wish list of 10 businesses, people, whatever you want to do business with, and just push it, because you never know what'll happen right now.
And Mikki, can I jump in just for a second? Because, I know that it's not good to try to speak after certain people, and I know you're going to close us out on a strong suit. So, so I don't want to go behind you. I do want to thank the audience for joining us for this webinar. And we ask that you please stay tuned for other webinars to come. And you can follow us on Instagram at the Black Table _. Is that correct? That's correct, right? Okay, we're gonna put that up if you don't mind. And so we're gonna, did you have something, Mena?
Yeah, I want to go before Mikki as well.
Everybody's scared.
And to Damon's point, I just wanted to say that one of the things that's really important that we do now is collaborate. If you have a business service and you're going after the pitch to get the no, collaborate with someone that's going to help you get the yes.
There you go.
We have done that with the Black Table, and that's one of the things that we've seen a huge success with is if I have a special skill set, before I go after that business thinking I need to get it by myself, I'm going to call up Todd, I'm going to call up Damon, I'm going to call up William, whoever has a skill set that I don't have, and I'm going to collaborate with them, and I'm going to make my pitch that much stronger, and I'm going to storm the castle to get the yes. So we encourage all of you guys to come up with the list of people, brand, service providers, vendors, whoever it is that can help you guys develop your pitches and to develop your decks, whatever it is to make you stronger, because it's about collaborating. It's so about collaborating at this time so that we can put our best foot forwards and we can make them answer the call to action, which is they need to include us at the table while we are creating our own tables. So I just wanted to add that in there before Mikki.
Okay.
First.
and Mikki, in your thing, I think that someone just asked a very important question. Is how do we get past the classism within our own community?
Again, you got to know your value. No one else gets to define who you are but you. And if you give it to someone else, if you give it to any structure, that you have to hold up the truth of who you are. And anything else that doesn't match that has to be dismissed. So we're going to do away with classism in this era. Right here in this prosperity season, we're going to do away with classism because God said he made each of us in his image, and classism wasn't on the table. He was satisfied when he was finished. Mm-hmm. Now, what I want to say to all of us and to everyone who's listening, today has been a master class. And you have had at least 25 steps to master you Inc. And you just ought to have a notebook right now that's called Storm the Castle and everything that you need to do so. If fear is not on the table, so don't manufacture it. Make up your mind this day that you can't use it. One of my favorite Mikki-isms is this: don't ask permission where you have authority. Today you have been given authority to storm the castle, to show up as your authentic self, to ask the difficult questions, to hold people accountable, and to follow up to make sure that they're executed. Again, you know what opportunity looks like, so don't wait for somebody else to serve you. Go out and create it. Get your celebration circle so you're not the only one whose voice you're listening to. Because if everybody in that circle agrees with you, remember your circle is too small. The circle is supposed to push, polish, and check you. Now, that this moment, we understand it is pregnant with opportunity. And if we labor right, we're going to give birth to some amazing successes. But we got to labor before we get there. And so that means that each of us has to be transformational in our thinking. We have to be relentless in our actions and fearless in our determination. And we will win if we don't quit. So that's my last word. Storm the castle. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We will see you in week after next with another version of the Black Table Leadership Forum.
And just, I got a couple questions about people wanting to know if there's going to be a replay of the webinar.
Yeah, we're going to save it and we're going to land it on our Facebook Live and inbox. And yes. Great.
Yes, it'll be on our Instagram, our Facebook, and then we'll also email this out to all of the attendees.
Yay. Thank you. It was an honor to be able with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.